Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to drop this week. The first guy, Baty of the New York Mets. So Baty was tearing it up in AAA in the first few weeks of the season before the Mets called him up. And yes, he's the number ranked 10 prospect in Major League Baseball, but so far it hasn't translated in the major leagues last season or this season so far, with 75 at-bats this season and 38 last season. So on the year for Baty, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, 8 runs scored, 240 batting average, and a 321 on base. So he's got a good eye at the plate for the most part. On base percentage has been good, but the batting average hasn't been anything really for Baty. And he's not showing power or driving in runs. So right now, well, he's not doing much of that as Baty. And the last 2 weeks, he's really hitting under the Mendoza line. A homer, 4 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a 178 average, and a 275 on base. He's definitely a hitter I would drop this week. A lot of prospects have come up so far in the early going. We haven't done much in fantasy baseball, and owners have been dropping these guys. And Baty right now has been dropped in 5% of leagues. So the last few games for Baty: May 9th at the Reds 0 for 3 with a run, May 10th at the Reds 0 for 3, May 11th at the Reds 0 for 3, May 12th at the Nats 0 for 2 with a run, May 13th at the Nats 2 for 4, May 14th at the Nats 0 for 4, running a rib, and May 15th he sat out versus the lefties. So that's another thing as well. Baty, they don't really play him a lot versus lefties, and if the Mets have a strand of lefties coming up, he's not going to see the field much. So right now, with that factored in, and him not hitting the baseball and doing anything in terms of RBIs, power, or batting average, he's an easy drop this week. The next hit is Anthony Rendon of the Los Angeles Angels. So Rendon, it looked like he was starting to turn the corner and be productive for this Angel team in the early going. But once again, the injury bug has found Rendon, and now he's going to be out with a groin injury, and that could be a lingering injury. And usually over the last few years, once Rendon's on the injury list, it's a long extended time on there, or he's even out for the season like he was last season. I'm not saying this is a season-ending injury, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if he's out a month for some with this injury. Is Rendon on the season: a homer, 20 RBIs, 19 runs scored, a 301 average, a 415 on base, and 2 stolen bases. So this season it looked like Washington National Anthony Rendon working the count, not striking out a lot, only 15 strikeouts and 103 at-bats, drawing a lot of walks, driving in runs, and getting on base. But now with this injury, it's going to set him back, and he's not really a stash. The home runs haven't been anything this season, with 1 on the season. RBIs, mediocre with 20, but obviously the on-base and batting average have been great, but he's not having eye-popping numbers to hold him onto your roster right now. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a month-long injury for Rendon. May 7th versus the Rangers, 2 for 3, a grand slam. I won. May 8th versus Houston, 1 for 2, a run and a rib. May 9th versus Houston, 0 for 4. May 10th versus the Astros, 2 for 4 with a run. May 12th at the Guardians, 3 for 5 with a run. And May 13th at the Guardians, 0 for 2 with an RBI. So right now with this injury and him not driving the ball much for extra base hits and RBIs with 20 and only a homer on the season, he's a hitter I would drop this. Next hitter I would look to drop this week, Suwinski of the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Suwinski, the first month of the season, he got off to a roaring start, but now the numbers have dropped off, and his strikeout rate is going up there as well on the season. 7 home runs, 20 RBIs, 12 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, but 41 strikeouts and 102 at-bats, a 235 average, and a 365 on base. And over the last 2 weeks, he hasn't done anything for fantasy owners. A homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored, a 147 average, a 310 on base, but 16 strikeouts in 34 at-bats. So he's pretty much been striking out half his at-bats now, is Suwinski. The only bright thing for him is the on-base is still pretty high over the last few weeks. He's still drawing his walks with a ratio of almost 170 points, his on base to his batting average, but he's not doing anything else for fantasy owners. And this is part of fantasy baseball. You pick up a player, he's hot a few weeks, doesn't have much of a track record, and then he fizzles out and you drop him back to the wire. And that's exactly the case with this Pittsburgh Pirates season. They got off to the hot start. They've been struggling now, and the same thing here with Suwinski, not really doing anything. May 8th versus the Rockies, 1 for 2. May 9th versus the Rockies, 0 for 3. May 10th versus the Rockies, 0 for 2. May 12th at the Orioles, 2 for 4 with a rib. May 13th at the Orioles, 0 for 3. And May 14th at the Orioles, 1 for 2 with a run. So right now, not hitting the baseball good. I know he's got some pop. Last season, he showed it with 19 home runs and 326 at-bats. If he had a 500 at-bat season, it would have been close to 30 home runs for him. So he could be a poor man Roddy Tellez is something to Suwinski when the season's over. Low batting average, high strikeouts, and power and some RBIs. But right now, he's on his having track record where he's put up multiple seasons in a row with a lot of home runs, RBIs. So right now, while he's not doing anything, and he's cooled off big time, is Suwinski. He's a hitter I would drop this week. The next hitter I'd look to drop is his teammate, Brian Hayes of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay, Brian Hayes was a former top prospect many seasons ago, but it really hasn't translated to the major leagues. Besides the stolen bases on the season, a homer, 10 RBIs, 22 runs scored, 6 stolen bases, a .235 average, and a .299 on base. So last season, 7 homers, 41 RBIs, and 20 stolen bases in pretty much a full year, 505 at-bats. But right now, he's not hitting for batting average. He didn't last season. On base is still pretty low with only a .299 on the season. And pretty much just stolen bases, Hayes is giving fantasy owners. So it's surprising to me he's still only 51% of fantasy leagues for a guy who's pretty much doing the minimum and not bringing much to the table for fantasy owners. May 8th versus the Rockies, 2 for 3. May 9th versus the Rockies, 1 for 3 with a run. May 10th versus the Rockies, 0 for 4. May 12th at the Orioles, 0 for 3. May 13th at the Orioles, 0 for 4. And May 14th at the Orioles, and that one, 1 for 4 with a run and a rib. So right now, Hayes not doing much, like I said. His Pirate team, they were just playing over their head early in the season. And now it translates in the low runs scored per game by this Pirate team. And no one really having fantasy value. So right now, while Hayes isn't doing much, and he definitely could pick things up and has potential to steal 30 bases this season. But right now, he's pretty much been idle, his numbers. And a drop candidate this week in the 5th and final hitter I look to drop this week. He is Harold Ramirez of the Tampa Bay Rays. So yes, his playing time might go up a little bit here. With Yandy Diaz going for an MRI. Diaz's injury isn't that serious because he was having some season. And Harold Ramirez, the numbers look good, but the playing time just hasn't been there. And the numbers have dropped off over the last 2 weeks. On the season, 6 homers, 15 RBIs, a stolen base, 16 runs scored, a .311 average, and a .365 on base. But the last 2 weeks here, with playing time cut down and not hitting the ball that well for Ramirez. A homer, 4 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a stolen base, a .273 average, and a .294 on base. So right now, yes, he might get the playing time back if Diaz is going to be out, even if he has a stint for 2 weeks on the injured list is Diaz. Ramirez plays some first base and qualifies for outfield, but we got to see the production again, because even the games he's played, he really hasn't done much, is Ramirez, and he's only been playing 3-4 times a week over the last few weeks. May 7th versus the Yankees, 2 for 5 with a run. May 8th, he sat out at Baltimore. May 9th at the Orioles, 0 for 4. May 10th at the Orioles, 1 for 4. May 11th, sat out at the Yankees. May 12th at the Yankees, 2 for 5 with a run. May 13th at the Yankees, 0 for 3. May 14th, sat out at the Yankees. And now May 16th, a 3-game set here today, starting at the New York Mets. So right now, Harold Ramirez, if the playing time is going to be there, he definitely could pick it up and get things going. But right now, that's uncertain. And I don't think this Ray team likes playing him every day. Yes, versus lefties, he'll get this starting opportunity. But obviously not that many lefties in the league anymore. So Ramirez is dropped this week. So that's a few hitters I look to drop in Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season.